Before we start, I need to be clear about a few things. I am not a doctor or a therapist. I am a coach, a learning and development consultant who's worked with a variety of people, whether they be neurotypical or neurodivergent, for over 20 years. And if you're getting treatment for anxiety right now, therapy, medication, whatever, do not stop. Please talk to your healthcare provider before making any changes. Today we're talking about something research just revealed: how your environment can make anxiety worse if you're neurodivergent. This isn't instead of treatment, it's something to consider alongside treatment. I'm Claire, I have ADHD, and when I was younger I had terrible anxiety. I didn't know why, I didn't know I had ADHD, I just knew I was anxious all the time. Looking back now, I can see what was happening, and new research backs it up, so let me explain. First, let's be really clear about what kind of anxiety we're talking about. Normal anxiety is when you're nervous before something important, a presentation, a job interview, maybe meeting new people. It passes when the thing is over, and that is healthy. That's your brain's way of keeping you alert. Clinical anxiety or anxiety disorders are different. It's when anxiety can last for months or years, feels way bigger than the situation warrants, can get in the way of your daily life, and you can't even shake it when you know logically you're fine. And sometimes it comes with panic attacks, with constant worry and other physical symptoms. Clinical anxiety is a medical condition and it needs proper help, therapy and sometimes medication. When I was younger, I had this, the clinical kind. I didn't have a diagnosis, I just knew I was constantly on edge. I'd wake up anxious, I'd go to bed anxious, and everything felt overwhelming. I went to therapy, I learned coping strategies and they helped, but they didn't solve it completely. And then I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was 49, and suddenly so much of that anxiety made sense. So here's what research just found, and it explains what I lived through. A 2024 study from the University of Reading looked at autistic and ADHD adults who have anxiety, and they found something really important. Sensory sensitivities were one of the pathways making anxiety worse. In simple terms, if your environment constantly overwhelms your senses, it will feed your anxiety. And suddenly my past made sense. So when I was younger, working in traditional offices with fluorescent lights buzzing all day, open plan offices with constant noise, sitting still for hours, with back-to-back meetings with no breaks, I didn't know I was ADHD. I didn't know I had sensory sensitivities. I just knew I felt awful, constantly on edge, and my anxiety was through the roof. I thought it was just me, that I was weak, that I just needed to cope better. But here's what was actually happening. My ADHD brain needs movement to regulate, and I was forced to sit still. My sensory system gets overwhelmed by noise and fluorescent lights, and I was in that environment 8 hours a day. My brain processes better with breaks and variety, and I had neither. I wasn't weak, my environment was wrong for my neurology, and that environmental stress was making my clinical anxiety so much worse. And this research shows this isn't just me. This is common for neurodivergent people. So when your environment doesn't fit how your brain works, it creates chronic stress. And if you already have anxiety, well, that stress piles on top, making everything harder. So what happened when things changed for me? I changed my career quite a few times. I then started my own business, and this meant that I could control my environment. I work from home now, quiet, controlled environment. I also still work out in offices, but more on my own terms, and I'm moving all the time. And when I can control the lighting, no fluorescence. I don't do back-to-back meetings, and I schedule my day around when my brain works best. Did my anxiety disappear completely? No, but it decreased dramatically. And this was before I even knew I had ADHD, before I understood what was really happening. I just knew that when I had more control over my environment, I felt better, less anxious, more settled, more able to cope. Now that I know I have ADHD, it all makes sense. The anxiety wasn't just clinical anxiety that needed treatment. It was also my nervous system reacting to an environment that didn't fit it. I still use strategies I learned in therapy, and I also now teach those strategies. Things like breathing techniques when I feel overwhelmed, checking my thoughts, is this anxiety rational or not, and breaking big tasks into smaller steps, and also talking things through with people I trust. Those strategies still help and they're still valuable. But you know what made the biggest difference? Changing my environment to fit my neurology. I am not saying therapy and coping strategies don't work. They do. I'm saying if you're also in the wrong environment, those strategies are fighting an uphill battle. And when I changed my environment, suddenly those coping strategies worked better because I wasn't constantly swimming against the current anymore. So here's how I think about this now. And this matches what the research shows. If you're neurodivergent with anxiety, there might be two things going on. Factor one, clinical anxiety. This is the actual anxiety disorder, brain chemistry, maybe genetics, maybe trauma, maybe all of those. And this needs proper support, therapy, sometimes medication, professional help. This doesn't just go away because you change your environment. Factor two, environment stress. This is when your daily environment doesn't fit your neurology. Sensory overwhelm, forced stillness, constant noise, bright lights, and no control over your schedule. For ADHD and autistic people, this creates chronic stress every single day. And the research shows these two factors feed each other. The clinical anxiety makes you more sensitive to environmental stress. The environmental stress makes the clinical anxiety harder to manage. So if you only address one, you're only solving half the problem. Someone with panic disorder who's also autistic and sensitive to sound, well, they need therapy for the panic disorder, yes, but if they're also in a noisy open office every day, that sensory stress is going to trigger panic attacks more often. They need both things, therapy and a quieter workspace. Someone with generalised anxiety who has ADHD and needs movement, they need support for the anxiety, but if they're also forced to sit still for 8 hours a day, their nervous system is constantly dysregulated. They need both anxiety support and the ability to move. So this isn't either or, it's both and addressing both makes everything easier. So if you're neurodivergent and dealing with anxiety, here's what I'd suggest. First, if you have clinical anxiety, stay in treatment. Do not stop therapy. Do not stop medication. Do not make changes without talking to your doctor or therapist. Environmental changes don't replace treatment, they support it. Second, look at your environment. Ask yourself, does my anxiety get worse in certain places? Am I in environments that overwhelm my senses? Bright lights, loud noise, too much stimulation. Am I forced to sit still when I need to move? Do I have any control over my schedule, my workspace, my day? Just notice the patterns. Third, talk to your treatment team about environment. If you're in therapy, bring this up, and you could say something along the lines of, I've noticed my anxiety gets much worse when I'm in back-to-back meetings. I've read research showing that sensory environment can affect anxiety in neurodivergent people. Can we talk about whether environmental factors might be part of what I'm dealing with? Good therapists will welcome this because it gives them more information to work with. Fourth, make changes where you can. You might not be able to control everything, but you might be able to change some things. Can you work from home sometimes? Can you use noise cancelling headphones? Can you take movement breaks? Can you adjust your lighting in your space? Can you have some control over your schedule? Even small changes can help. For me, working from home was the big one. But before I could do that, I used headphones, I took walks at lunchtime, I adjusted my desk lamp, I found quieter spaces to work, and I moved more often. Small things, but they helped. Fifth, track what helps. So if you do make environmental changes, notice what happens. Is your anxiety a bit better? Is it the same? Is it worse? Does your therapy seem to work better? Are your coping strategies more effective? This is information. Share it with your treatment team. Sixth, be realistic about what this can and can't do. Changing your environment can reduce triggers that make anxiety worse, help your treatment work better, make your coping strategies more effective, reduce how often anxiety spikes. Changing your environment cannot cure clinical anxiety, replace therapy or medication, or fix everything on its own. It's one piece, an important piece, but not the only piece. Look, I want to be really clear about what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. I'm not saying anxiety isn't real, that you don't need treatment, that you just need to change your job and you'll be fine, and that environment is the only thing that matters. Clinical anxiety is absolutely real. It's a medical condition and it needs proper support. But what I am saying is if you're neurodivergent with anxiety, your environment might be making it harder than it needs to be. And I lived this. For years, I struggled with terrible anxiety in traditional work environments. And when I changed my environment, even before I knew I had ADHD, my anxiety got significantly better. Not gone, but better. The coping strategies I learned in therapy, they still work and I still use them every day, but they work so much better now that I'm not fighting my environment every single day. So if you're neurodivergent and dealing with anxiety, yes, get proper support for the anxiety and also look at your environment. Notice the patterns, make changes where you can because you deserve support for both pieces. If you're in crisis right now, please reach out. Do not suffer alone. Please do get help. In the next episode, we're talking about depression and how chronic environment mismatch can contribute to that too. It's the same careful approach, same research-backed information. Take care of yourself, stay in your treatment if you're in treatment, and know that you're not broken. You just might be in the wrong environment. And that is changeable.